νομίζω κάνει φοβερή δουλειά στην Ομόνια.
And we call taxi, and with Kilian, I open the door behind, I put him in the taxi, and I close the door, and I want to go inside, and Kilian go out.
You're gonna get someone messaging you afterwards saying, "Why did you mention me?"
Hey, fuck them.
She say, I cry because you are here today.
Πάμε σιλά καμουθιά βρεγά βρεγά τα μέσα.
Ed, welcome to another edition of the No Choftes podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your NOUNA. Now, this is a very special edition for various reasons. I'm going to introduce my co-host first, Rodri. How you doing, mate? Long time no speak.
Yeah, a little bit busy, but looking forward to this one. So,
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, people that are watching thinking, well, this is an Omonoia Nicosia fan podcast, so what's this got to do with Manchester United? Well, first of all, the viewers or the regular viewers know that I used to have a league match book at Man United and a season ticket, and I've got my own opinions on the Glazers. And Rodri, being a United fan, is quite relatable. We had Sammy McElroy on a few weeks ago with Wayne Barton. We've had David Petrucci on, former United player. So we've got that United connection. Roy and Chris, my regular co-hosts, are United fans. But right now we've got the 1958. A supporter group who are very, very unhappy about the ownership of the club, the direction the club is heading. I'm going to ask the gentleman in a moment what the 58 are all about. And as you can see, their cameras are off for the anonymity, which is absolutely fine. I've got no problem with this whatsoever, which makes an even more interesting podcast. So, gentlemen, thank you for jumping on. Really appreciate you being here.
No problem.
Well,
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff. So, first of all, gents, for people that are watching, who or what are the 1958?
So the 1958 are basically just like any of us. We're just a group of like-minded, a group of Reds. Turns out we have a lot of complementary skills, some really clever people, and some really kind of good ideas. We just want new owners. We just not prepared to kind of watch the club just rot away to nothing. And nobody seemed to be stepping up to the plate. We wasn't getting any answers from anybody. Things were just dragging on, and nobody was actually, making a difference. So we wanted to kind of see what we could do. We had a lot of good ideas, and it kind of just snowballed on from there, really.
Fair enough. And there are some parallels between Manchester United and Omonoia. And the reason why I say this is because our club was taken over in 2018. And there are a set of fans who are quite unhappy with the new ownership, and they went to create their own team, much as FC United did. But you guys have no affiliation with FC, do you?
No, we have no affiliation with anybody. We're just, like I said, just a like-minded group of Reds, group of lads, match-going fans, time-served Reds, if you like, with generations of history through our family. Granddads, great-granddads, dads who all supported United and the club. The love for the club is second to none, and that is really what's driving us forward.
So, I think as well, sorry if I could jump in there as well. I think just to add a little more about the group, there's so much diversity in our group as well. There's young, old, there's different members of the group that have got different stature and visibility within the club and within the fan base as well. And that's what helps it work.
Well, this is it, because you got a lot of younger generation supporters calling United fans top Reds, and immediately they associate the top Reds with the older generation. But you don't have to be in your 40s or 50s or 60s to be a top Red. You can be a top Red at 10, 15, 20,
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't about factions. We want to unite the fan base. There's too, as you mentioned there, there's too many kind of diverse groups within the United fan base, and unless we unite and fight the same fight, we're never going to get rid of the Glazers. History tells us that, you know, what they like. We know what we're up against here. You know, it's united we stand or divided we fall, and I think that's where we are now. A stance needs to be made. It's been a while since anything was done, but I don't think anything's been done in this era with this generation, with trying to get everybody together, young, old, global fans, match-going fans, and all the other kind of outliers of our factions within the fan base, to try and unify and have a concerted effort that doesn't stop, you know, relentless, to try and get these owners out.
I think to build on that as well, one thing that the weekend showed us is that, you know, we are that link now across all generations of fan. You know, you need to look at our Twitter, you can see that. You look at the protest on Saturday, we are now that link across all generations, all diversities, young and old.
Well, see, this is it, because I'm interested to know how you guys got together and decided to create the 58, because we've seen protests in the past, as you quite rightly mentioned, and you guys kind of came out the blue, but at the same time, for people who know you guys, there were a few murmurs anyway. So how did you guys get together to do this?
Yeah, so initially it was like just a WhatsApp group, and we just, you know, just talking United like you do. And, you know, as you start to find out a bit more about people, we all have like a lot of common, you know, like I said, we're just a like-minded group of lads, really. And it turns out once you know people, we've got a lot of really complementary skills. We all work really well together. We have some really good ideas. So, you know, we want change, we need change. We have the passion and energy to drive that change. And we won't stand back and watch the club we love rot away to nothing. And, you know, enough is enough, as Gary Neville says, you know, and that is what spurred us on, really. You know, is anybody going to step up to the plate here? And they weren't. So, yeah, so that's what we want to try and do.
Yeah, no, and I think if I can add to that as well, I think the melting pot for me was this 12 months we've had, this 12 months from the protest in Liverpool last year, this ESL debacle that we went through. What's happened? And you know, you talk about it and you're waiting, and you talk about it and you're waiting, and nothing happens, and nothing happens, and nothing happens. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that's what started all the dialogue between the guys and everything. I mean, obviously we've watched them out from day one. You know, we've attended protests and things in the past, but I think it's like, what's going on? What's happening now? What are people doing about this? We just keep hearing the same tripe again and again and again and again and again. Something had to change.
So what are you guys doing different to what the organisers of the protest in 2005 did? Because that was quite physical, to say the least. I remember the megastore getting trashed, for one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say too much about that day, but
no.
But what is it that you guys do? Because I know that it's more of a peaceful approach to protesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're all about peaceful and legal. You know, what happened last year with the Liverpool game was, we believe, totally unique. You know, it was in lockdown. You know, we'd been away from the games for a long time. You know, COVID and kind of breaking the rules and all that kind of thing. You know, we're in this for the long haul. So that's something we will be different. You know, we're not going to stop doing this. It's going to be relentless consistency. That's the only way. And it's got to be peaceful and legal, you know, because we need to build, to support and build a long-term plan to actually, you know, get rid of the Glazers. You know, they're just parasites. You know, that it's a puzzle within a puzzle within a puzzle with these guys, and we'll work this out. And you know, like I said in our tweet, you know, we'll remove the head of the snake, because that is what's breaking us. You know, everything cascades down from them. They set the standards. The club's a total mess. You know, it's broken and rotten from top to the bottom, as the saying goes. You know, we're not in this for any other purpose other than the objectives we have. After that, we're quite happy just to go back to being normal Reds. We don't have any fame, recognition, or anything else to detract from the cause, which is why, you know, we don't want to put kind of names out there and that kind of stuff. It's not about one person or individual. It's about the cause, and that is it. That's all we're interested in. And, you know, we need unity to actually achieve that.
I think to add to that as well, one of the things as well is fans from the outside looking in will be revitalised, will be encouraged by campaigns that have gone on at other clubs, successful campaigns at other clubs, the likes of Blackpool FC, etc., etc. So I think that's going to add massive strength, you know, right from the bottom up within the fans as well.
Yeah.
I think it's also, sorry, Spell. I think it's also worth pointing out that, You know, the protest that we put together on Saturday, you know, it was led by the younger generation, by youth. You know, they carried the flag, they stood out up front. And, you know, it's important that going back to the original question, different from 2005, it has to be legal, it has to be peaceful for it to have any longevity in it. And we want to reach out across the fan base. And, you know, in some ways, we want a club that we can hand over to these kids and they can support a decently run club. And that's why we want those kids up front on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's absolutely spot on, because it's all about the next generation and handing the club back to them in the same way as, you know, we was handed it over by our kind of relatives. You know, it's just not in a really good state at the moment, and you know, we want to try and fix that and give them something to be proud of. You know, we want to be proud of supporting United and not just being prostituted around for the next sponsor and, you know, just completely diluting the traditions and history of what United are all about.
So, you know, I'm glad you mentioned the Glazers and that they're your main target. But would it be fair to say that these protests also aimed at, say, for example, players possibly, and I know certain supporters? Because I know there's been a bit of back and forth with the fan cam generation. A lot of them are saying that they're your target as well. Can you clarify whether they are on your hit list, so to speak?
Well, obviously the priority is the owners, right? But we will call out anyone who we think are, you know, prostituting the club for their own self game. You know, anything that is dividing the fan base, you know, dividing them, anything that is influencing the younger generation in what we feel is you know, for the wrong reasons. Then, you know, we will call it out, because you know, that is what we're all about. You know, the Glazers, as we mentioned, they set the standards within the club. It's not just they're the priority, but there are other objectives as well. And once we've actually got those, we're quite happy just to trot off into the distance and go back to supporting United again. You know, Glazers really have lied to us, as we mentioned earlier, since the Liverpool protest. With all the FSS, the stuff with Must, nothing's materialised. You know, the rumoured sale of land sale of Old Trafford to property financiers to fund a new stadium. You know, we'll be forever in debt. You know, forever Glazer, forever lost if that happens, because they won't spend a penny of their own money. So we owe it to the next generation, you know, to pass the club over in the same way it was passed to us, and the traditions, the culture, the fan culture that we believe is important to carry on into the next generation as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Stal.
I can add to that a little bit as well in relation to the sort of the players. Is it aimed at the players, other fans, etc.? You know, one thing to really mention, I grew up attending the United games when fans were chanting against England, for example, and I didn't understand why. You know, one thing I loved was that United fans were getting behind the United players that had to deal with, for example, David Beckham was getting effigies of him hung off lampposts in 1998. What I loved back then was the fact that United as a fan base, you know, still to this day chants about how United have won the World Cup more than England. Still to this day turns its back on England games because of how our players have been treated. So Manchester United certainly shouldn't all of a sudden become a toxic environment whereby a different player is getting a different death threat each week. And it certainly shouldn't happen just because people are trying to gain, you know, personally.
Fair enough. Rod, have you got any questions so far, mate?
Yeah, it's just when you're saying you've got a long-term plan, you know, because these cretins, they have got thick skin. So are you in for the long haul? You obviously are, but you know, what is the long-term plan? Because we all want these cretins out, but how are you going to go about it? Because we've been through this before, and you know, they're long way from here, so they're hard to get to. And so I just want to know, what is the long-term plan, or you're just going to play it by ear?
Yeah. So yeah, so we're not cranks. We know we're passionate United fans with history through generations of our families. You know, we have a multifaceted plan. You know, we want to be. You know, we feel that kind of things that have happened in the past haven't been targeted in the right way. I know people have gone after with the green and gold campaign, going after sponsors and going after, you know, kind of people who are invested in the club. I think they're valid, but I think how they've gone about them is probably not the best way. So we want to kind of revisit that. We've reached out to all the supporters trusts. So in the close season, we'll be working on the kind of longer term strategy around the kind of non-football, non-protest type approaches that will give us that a multifaceted plan that we actually discussed at the start of the podcast. It's must, and the other fan groups and other groups need to come on board with us. It's not something anybody, I don't think, can achieve on their own, Rodri. I think it's going to take everybody to be on everyone's got a part to play, no matter how small a voice they think they've got. Across, if you support United and you want the Glazers out, then you're in the 58 is basically the message, and that is the only way we're going to get rid of these. If we try to do it, in single factions, or we try to, separate out the message, they're never going to get, like you said, they're thick-skinned. They've seen all this kind of stuff before.
Sorry, mate. Have you got any ideas? Obviously, the way to hurt these people is hurt them in the pocket. So, have you got any obviously, you can't say the details, but have you got plans in the future to hit them in the pocket?
I think I'll jump in there.
Yeah.
Yes, we have, and I think it taps into what was mentioned before. Some of our plans are to be more targeted. We're not going to go into them. We're going to be a little bit vague about it.
Yeah, obviously.
But, yeah. It needs to be targeted, and that's our focus. Now, we're looking at all different angles and all different factions of that football club and ownership. But again, it's nothing without the support of the fan base. That fan base needs to keep going and keep supporting us, and we need to unite and we need to be together.
I think one of the big difference was in 2005, that campaign, that protest, that took a certain light and that attracted a certain type of person. And with it, it put a certain type of person away as well, put a certain type of person off. One thing we've done with the legal route, with the structured route, with the inclusive route, we've got some of the best finance people we've ever come across, some of the best negotiators we've ever had the honour of sharing conversation with, are now coming to us. They're approaching us. They're willing to, put their name on the line potentially in some cases, and that's something I don't think we've ever had before.
Yeah, and also United are they're a different proposition to some of the other clubs. They're not a Chelsea or a Blackpool. It's a totally different proposition to what some people are saying. Well, why don't we get like a consortium together or something like that? It just makes you wonder what's been going on behind the scenes with Must. We need to get those guys on board with us as well. We have had discussions with them. We're not going to exclude anybody from the fight and the battle that we want to do to get the Glazers out, no matter what's happened previously. We need everybody on board for this.
So what do you think is stopping? What do you think is stopping Must working with yourselves? What is blocking it?
I think there's been a number of reasons. I think obviously there's been the people behind the 58 being an unknown entity, so there's a trust issue. But that's an issue throughout the whole fan base. A trust issue. It's I'll be honest, it's ridiculous. How broken this fan base can be on the back of, I don't know, things that have gone on in the past, different agendas. But it's amazing. It's amazing what you find out when you dig a little bit deeper. But anyway, all that aside, just got to come together, because it's just not going to work without that. And we need to sorry?
Oh, go on, mate. Go on, finish. Sorry, go on.
And we just need to get to a point where, all right, there might be a reason that, we don't agree 100%, but we just need to get to that happy place where we can all just move together. Because in the end, we just want a change in ownership, and we want the upright ownership in place.
Sorry, Stel. Are the fan cams a major problem?
What do you mean? Are they a major problem?
Well, leeching off the club.
Well, some of them, no, it's kind of you don't want to generalize, but most of them are in it for their own self-gain. They're in it for, they want, the Glazers are good for them. They want a divisive agenda so they can kind of push the negative, because that kind of attracts more kind of viewers or whatever they call them, subscribers. I don't know what they call them. But for protests around Old Trafford, then we need the kind of match going fans, the local fans for that. And when we start to reach out for kind of targeted, to hit them in the pocket, that is where everybody else can come in. But we won't be reaching out to the fan cams. If they want to help out, they should be doing it for the good of the club themselves, without self-promoting it on their own channels. We're not going to tickle the backsides of fan cams to come and help out for something that, if they're United fans, I've never met a United fan who doesn't want the Glazers out. So why aren't they supporting us? Why aren't they supporting this cause? It makes you, it makes you ask that question.
I think for all the negativity around. Sorry, go on.
Yeah,
I think for all the negativity around the fan cams as well, you just need to have a look at the front line of that protest. We keep going back to it. Look at the pictures of the boy on his dad's shoulders walking around Old Trafford. There's as much passion as there is greed on the other side of the fence. There's as much passion in the youngsters that were there and that will continue to be there at every home game.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing I'm getting at, though, because it's kind of the youngsters that kind of follow the fan cams. So when you get in different kind of stories and different kind of angles and different kind of negativities, like you're saying, we all should be as one. And I don't feel like they're on the same page.
Yeah,
I think Roger, I'm gonna, sorry. Let me jump in there. I think I know what you're getting at there, Roger. I mean, I've seen a comment from one fan camera who said, how can I support the protest because they haven't asked me? We shouldn't need to ask you. If you're a Man United fan and you want the Glazers out, turn up.
Exactly.
Turn up and join the rest of the crowd. Let's hear your voice. We're not going to be asking anybody. We will not tell the fans how to support this football club. It's up to them. We'll just facilitate for them. We'll just be a voice for them. And all we're doing is reacting to what the fans have asked us to do. That's all we're doing.
I tell you what, if they're fans as well, they can drop into our inbox at any point. If they want to tell us they want to be their front line, if they want to tell us, so be it. But they haven't.
No, but it would help massively this is what I'm getting at. If it would help massively because they have got a big audience, and we all need to be together to get rid of these cretins. And
so we've got an open door. There it is. We're open for talks. Let's get it.
It's good to,
but it's about the cause, Rodri. It's not about them and pushing the narrative. About. The narrative on the channels and making it all about them. It's not. That's why the 58's here, because we actually don't give a toss about any self-promotion, any self-gain. We just want the cause to be done, and then we'll just go back to being normal United fans. If they're prepared to do that and not big themselves up and make it all about them and dilute the cause and the message that we're trying to do, then fine. But we shouldn't be having to go cap in hand to people. If you don't, like I said, I've never met a fan who doesn't want the Glazers out, so we shouldn't be having to go to anybody.
But if the reason they've not got in touch is because they're fearing the animosity, we're saying there isn't the animosity right now, as long as it's not toxic, as long as it's everything my esteemed friend has just said, we're waiting to hear from them. We're certainly not going cap in hand, but we're waiting to hear from the fan cams, from groups all across the globe, as we already have.
Yeah, we've had some massive support, by the way. It's been really humbling what we've had. The DMs are just totally overwhelming, and we've had some really, really good offers from support from everywhere, all over the world. And that's exactly what we need when we move into kind of the next phase, which is obviously beyond protests at the ground. We've got multifaceted plans for the future for this.
What I wanted to ask you, gents, was about the club's obsession with social media interactions and engagement. And I seem to remember Ed Woodward, or I think it was Richard Arnold, bragging about the Man United women's Instagram had more followers than 9 other clubs, which great for the women's scene, great. But in terms of social media as a whole, we know how toxic it can be, but we also know how positive it can be. So how do you guys feel about, the club having conference calls and they're talking about their annual income and all that kind of stuff, but then emphasizing social media engagements as a key factor?
Yeah, times have changed, right? Since the 05, like what you opened up with Stella at the start about the previous protest. Social media is a big thing now. It wasn't then, but it's something we can actually turn against them. Believe it or not, it's something we plan on turning against them. Like we mentioned, everyone's got a role to play, no matter how small or insignificant they think they are. And if everyone unites and does this, we'll make it really uncomfortable for the Glazers. Obviously, nobody can make, they own the club, right? Nobody can make them sell. But if we can make it real uncomfortable for them, then that will make it more realistic. That maybe the value of the club will come down, and more kind of investors will look for that. And they might just say enough's enough. Things aren't going great for the Glazers at the moment, and everyone's got a tipping point. Even the Glazers.
I think as well. I think as well, it's been quite obvious over the last week or so. I mean, obviously we've been putting pressure on the club and on obviously not pressure on the trust. We've been asking questions of the trust, but we've been putting pressure on the club. And then the next minute they announced that Ten Hag's nearly been signed, and they've appointed somebody to have a look at the window frames at the stadium. And they're pushing that stuff out to try and quell and dampen the fans from rising up.
Yeah,
and I think it's just so obvious.
I think they're pushing it out. They're pushing it out to appease the marketing departments as well, that will be approaching them saying, "What the hell are you going to do about that?" And I don't think long term it will be that hard to make it a financially unviable prospect to commercially partner with Manchester United. I certainly don't think it will be sold on interactions once the tide starts turning anyway.
Oh, it's like when Wesley Sneijder was always linked when it came to season ticket renewal date, isn't it?
It's so obvious. I mean, it's just a tried and tested model, isn't it? It's a tried and tested model. They know it worked. They know it's worked before, and they just keep rolling the same old crap out and expect United fans, to buy it. We're sick of being mugged off. We're sick of being lied to, and it ain't going to work anymore.
And I think the Glazers. I mean, it's obvious that the Glazers target the worldwide fan base for this, because they want everything to think everything's rosy in the garden. So when they watch a game, they want to make sure Old Trafford's full and singing and dancing, so everything looks really, really nice and dandy. And also, it's clear that one of their considerations when they buy a player is their commercial value to the club. I mean, we saw that with Ronaldo. San Ronaldo shares, the shares shot up, and then I think it was Darcy sold 100 million shares when they're at the height, and didn't invest a penny back into the club. So it's obvious that the Glazers, it's all look, they're just draining the club. I'm not telling anybody what they don't already know, but am I? That's why we're talking about going across the whole fan base. Talking to the whole fan base around the world. It's about awareness as well, isn't it? How these guys are really just asset stripping and draining this club, the life out and the history out of this club.
Gents, do you mind if I play devil's advocate for a moment and ask a question that you're not prepared for? Is that okay?
Go for it.
It's just come to my mind now, because I seem to remember when Fergie was approached by a United fan about the Glazers, and at an airport. I think it was before a pre-season friendly tour, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I remember him telling them, "Fuck off and support Chelsea if you don't like it." He actually came out to say that there was no value in the market at the time when City was signing Silva and Aguero. So this obviously has been a long-stem problem. That being said, how many people do you think are to blame for the Glazers being here and staying here? I mean, I think it's innumerable, isn't it? I can't even say the word.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of complicit in a way, Stal. Obviously, you've got the Rock of Gibraltar stuff with like Ferguson. Woodward was behind he was a banker, and I did say that right. Who actually got
you said that right.
who got who was kind of behind all the kind of with the JP Morgan, I think was the bank involved. So he was kind of led the charge for that, and then he moved into CEO, and I think Fergie was such a genius of a manager. He kind of covered over a lot of that the shortcomings of the Glazers, and we kind of got away with it until 2013, obviously. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's been that many people complicit with the Glazers coming in and kind of taking over the club. But mountains are meant to be climbed, as a great player from '99 once said before a PSG game, and we want to climb that mountain and get rid of these.
So would it also help for obviously ex-United players with a platform that reaches millions to get behind and support you as well?
Oh, I think that's really important, Rodri. I'm glad you brought it up. I think we're just normal United fans, right? Nobody knows us anyway, apart from the match-going fan base. We need kind of a figurehead, a spokesperson who can kind of come on board and just stick the neck on the line, and just show it's not about, they're not being bought by the Glazers, they're not being cajoled into anything, and if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do, no matter what you're doing. Some things are worth fighting for, as we say.
I think hopefully as well. I think as we move on and we get deeper and deeper into what we're planning, and then the process hopefully will go better and better with the fan base supporting it more and more as it becomes more and more trust. Maybe they'll be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more behind the movement. But maybe there's a little bit of self-preservation at the moment, but it shouldn't be, because we haven't got any agenda.
I've got to be honest with you, I was going to come Saturday, but I was going to come with my 7-year-old, and I thought to myself, well, if it gets a bit messy again like it did last time, but it was so peaceful then, the next one, then I'll be, I'm definitely going to come to it. So I think that helps, that it was a peaceful and it was a very successful protest, and it's only going to get bigger. So we do need someone to stick the neck out, i.e., I'll say it, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, all these people with a good platform, big platform, who are die-hard United fans, supposedly. So yes, they do need to stick the neck out and get behind it.
We can assure the players, we can assure the ex-players, it's in our interests as much as it is theirs, maybe more so, to ensure that it stays legal, stays in the right manner. And one of the biggest blockers to them coming out will have been effectively how much are they putting out there, and how much of it isn't even in their control. They're effectively risking everything. It's not in their control. We can assure them now this is, and again, as the others have said, over time we'll build trust. Over time, potentially they'll even come down and join us, who knows? But yeah, we can absolutely assure them that it is okay now for them to put their neck on the line, if you will, and to come out and support us. It'll be interesting to see who does as well.
Lads, yeah. I've seen a few tweets over the weekend from various fans of different clubs saying, oh, here they are again, they're doing another protest. Is it because the team's not doing well? Is it because they're not spending money, even though that they've spent loads of money over the years, close to $1 billion, however much it is? You guys said that you're in here for the long haul, but what would you say to people that say to you guys, well, where were you when the club were doing well, winning Champions Leagues? Where were you, when United was signing big name players? Why are you complaining about things now? Is it because things aren't going well? What would you say to these people?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a tried and tested message that they're only complaining because the results are. It's not about results. Performance and results are secondary, really, to getting rid of the Glazers. And where we were before, we were supporting the club. The 58 have only been around really for a few months. It's amazing, really, the kind of traction, support, and what we've managed to achieve in that short space of time. And that's where we've been. It's literally just a couple of months we've been going into this now. But we know about what's happened in the past, and we, like I said, we want to change that. And I think if we do kind of regular protests and other actions, that's going to be better for us to build a platform, and probably more impact than even maybe what happened at the Liverpool game last season, which is, like I said, we think was just a total one-off. I don't think we'll ever repeat that again. And like I said, we just want legal and peaceful. We don't want to even go down that route anyway.
I think to add to that as well is the fact that the protest at the Liverpool game was an education for probably a lot of fans who just didn't realise just how bad these owners were. Do you know what I mean? So that is fresh in their mind. They know how bad they are. We can win trophies, we can win games, we can win titles, but they'll still be draining this club, and they'll still come back with another offer of let's play midweek 20 games a season all over the world and make as much money as possible without relegation. Don't think it's going away. It'll come back again in some form. So yeah. I think there's more of an awareness now since the Liverpool protest, and more of an anger. And I think they're more transparent than ever. I think the Glazers are more transparent than ever since the ESL debacle. And I just think there'll be more awareness about it. And I think people will stick with it. And I don't think the fan base will have the wool pulled over their eyes again.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to forget. Maybe some of the rival fans should realise as well what it is that we're fighting for and how we came out in them numbers after that ESL.
Yeah. Because the Glazers were trailblazing that ESL. Let nobody forget that. And no United fan was surprised by that. But I think maybe some of the opposition fans, maybe they didn't know what they were like. But, United fans have known what they're like for all too long. And no one was surprised that there was a figureheads along with the Liverpool owners. No surprise, they're both American owners and they're both on the franchise model. And, the move Old Trafford to Los Angeles 1 year and Melbourne the next year, they don't care. They don't care about the club or traditions, which is, again, why the 58 and why the 58 name really is around. So people don't forget about that and what we've overcome in the past. And United, kind of resolve that through history around this kind of stuff.
And what makes it worse as well when you've got your neighbours who you've dwarfed for years, everything they're doing is correct. Yes, they've got a cash cow as an owner, but the facilities, the training ground, everything is correct. And it's just embarrassing to see in the last 15, 20 years that teams like Tottenham, other teams have got better facilities than Manchester United. It's just... Yeah,
it's tragic.
But you see, you know what, Rodri? It's a very valid point. We are 10 years behind some other teams. 10, 15 years, and it's like the Glazers need to react. It's like, right, we've got a shit training ground. We're worse than Leicester, so let's find a little bit of money and be, to get a training ground just as good as Leicester City. And I have no disrespect to Leicester, but they have owners who invest their own money. You know what I mean? The Glazers don't want to invest their own money. They just want to strip the club of money, strip the club, put more debt, to just keep up.
Yeah. But
keep up.
Sorry, mate, this is not Leicester and this is not Tottenham. It's Manchester United. They earn millions.
Exactly.
Millions.
Exactly.
I think this Manchester United is arguably the UK's most recognised commercial asset worldwide. What we need is an ownership structure that uses its own business assets to strengthen the value of the club, and not an ownership structure that uses the club to strengthen its own business assets. That's what it boils down to ultimately.
Yeah. Lads, before I ask some Twitter questions, because I know that obviously the game is about to kick off in about 20 minutes and you lot want to watch the game, which is understandable. But what would you say if the Glazers said, right, we'll give you a seat at the table, come and talk to us? What would you do?
We would talk to him. But he needs to sit at the table. He can't turn up once and then disappear for the rest of the year. He needs to turn up and talk to us, and we won't accept anything other than a viable solution, and for us, a fan share that gives the fans, a share scheme that gives the fans a voice at board level.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But that's not going to happen with these guys. They need to go. We need to get responsible ownership in place with a viable fan share option.
Yeah, and there's nobody in the 58, if they did ever sit opposite Joe Glazer, who wouldn't stand up and tell him to shove it if it wasn't right. And that's the difference. We don't care. We care about the club.
And that leads me into today, because obviously we've as MUFC members, we've had an announcement from MUFC today to say that a couple of weeks ago, again on the back of pressure that we've been putting on, they announced that they give the Glazers an ultimatum that they must come up with a fan share scheme that's acceptable to the trust by the anniversary of the ESL announcement, or else, well, it's gone. And today, we get a statement from MUFC that just said, I think it was the fact that deadline date was something that was just maybe not achievable. Well, that's just not good enough. That's just not good enough. What are they going to do now? They put it out there. They give them the ultimatum. They've not give anything back to the trust. What did they do now?
Total contempt.
That's what I want to know.
Well, that's how they treat the fan base, with total contempt.
There you go. All right, let me fire over some quick questions. Yeah, so you got the Lost Nomad. He sent a few areas of concern I have and a few suggestions too. Number one, despite the planned protests, 98% of the stadium was filled. And number two, the protesters had bought merchandise and tickets too. We say we want to kill the snake, but we keep on feeding it. What's your response to that, gents?
I'll kick off with that one, and maybe the other guys can jump in. So 55,000 roughly season ticket holders at United. If they didn't buy those tickets, then they would go to the likes of, I don't know, kind of day trippers and other type of areas of the fan base who they're just out for, understandably, they're just out for a day out. They're not really bothered about the long-term viability of the club or the Glazers. They'll just buy, and they're the perfect customer for the Glazers, right? But you will lose what United is all about. You'll lose a history. You'll lose a fan culture. You'll lose people who the local rivalry, understand football, understand the chants in the ground. You know, you would lose so much doing that. Now we can't force people to come dressed in a certain way. We don't want to force people or prevent them from going in the stadium. We want, legal and peaceful. We're not about that at all. So what the message I will send out is, if people want to join the protest, brilliant. That's what we want. If they then want to stay outside the ground for X amount of minutes, 17 minutes at the weekend to signify a minute for every year these owners have owned us, brilliant. And if people want to stay out longer for the entire game, even better. So yeah, I get that message, but it's you can't, you need to walk before you can run with these things.
I think just to add to that, I think the TRA was 95% empty at kickoff. So let's throw some percentages around there.
It's a fair point.
The other thing to mention is we've won the trust of a lot of fans. Being Sports said 8,000 people were on the march. Rodri, you said it yourself. You were on the fence with your concerns around your little lad. How many people were on the fence and didn't show, but now will come back invigorated, positive with what they saw, that this time around won't be in the stadium. How many people were in there hearing what was going on outside, thinking, bloody heck, I wish I gave it the benefit of the doubt. Those people are going to be with us next time round. Yeah,
and looking down that Warwick Road, I was at the back. There were just a sea of United fans, and everybody was looking after each other. Even the bus drivers were taking leaflets, handing out and handing them around to people on his bus. It was a great atmosphere, and it was proud to be United again. It was proud to have that kind of atmosphere, and everybody looking after each other, and everybody being fighting for the same goal. And it was a significant amount of people who stayed out till 3:17 as well. Don't forget, United Stadium is vast. It's when you look at things, but there's a fair number of people outside.
Fair enough. We've got another question here from Yes We Cantona. That's a great name right here. How can we mobilise the non-match going Reds, not the keyboard warriors, the ones who generally want to help but aren't able to go to matches because of the location?
Watch your space for the next phase of our plans. Like I said, everyone's got a part to play in this battle, and everybody will have a chance to actually do their part.
Great stuff.
Manchester United is our fan base is global. This is, although the northwest of England is going to be massively. The movement is going to be focused around the northwest of England. It certainly isn't the be all and end all, and that's also one of the big differences this time around. We're looking to speak to unite, and to mobilise our global fan base.
Great stuff. Andy says the protests before the Liverpool game last season were the closest we got to progress. What lessons have they taken from that?
Don't quite understand that question. So what lessons as who? The Glazers?
For me, the biggest For me, the biggest takeaway from the Liverpool protest, if that's the sort of question, you know, what's the biggest takeaway? What's the biggest lesson learned? For me, it was more the overwhelming sense of just how much the club meant to so many people. You know, the response to the ESL, the disgust at the disregard of history, the inequality of competition. For me, you know, that announced to the world that the fan base had been awakened. That was the biggest takeaway. That was what gave us the encouragement and the motivation to do what we've done. So that was the biggest thing. It was the fan base announcing to us that they were ready.
Okay. At Ten Hag Way, obviously he's a United fan that's excited about the new manager coming in. He or she asked, protesting before match and then going in and seeing the match is not having much of an effect. But last year, when the game got cancelled, it had a huge effect. Do you plan more drastic measures in the upcoming protests?
As long as it's peaceful and legal, we have got other plans. You know, there's no plans to do what happened at Liverpool. You know, the kind of damage and breaking into the club. That those kind of things aren't in our plans whatsoever. So let's just get that one clear. It's all about legal and peaceful, and we'll, like I said, we'll make it really uncomfortable for the Glazers. We have got a lot of plans around that.
Great stuff. Well,
no, that's not. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's not what we're about. It goes back to everything that we just said previously in the last 50 minutes. You know, we want the families there, we want the kids there, we want the older and younger generation. The only way that we're going to unite young and old, it has to be peaceful and it has to be legal, and that will give us longevity. And you know, we won't be organising anything, any kind of violence or any kind of destruction in any way, shape or form. Hopefully peaceful protests and the other things that we have plans will be enough for everybody to get behind and drive us forward.
We've got one more question from Kiri in Cyprus. He asks, considering the bids that Chelsea have attracted, more Americans with bad track records or highly capitalist approaches, state-sponsored consortiums, as well as Newcastle's recent takeover, what kind of takeover would they hope United attracts in the rare eventuality where the Glazers decide to sell?
I said it earlier on, or I alluded to it earlier on. Chelsea Football Club, Newcastle Football Club, you know, and then Manchester United. You just cannot compare them. You know, one of them is arguably the UK's, if not the world's most recognised commercial asset worldwide. It will attract a totally different type of investor, a totally different, you know, it's a totally different type of proposition. Chelsea, certainly throughout recent times, has been propped up by its ownership. Manchester United is literally the opposite. You know, we've been drained by our ownership, and 7 years without a trophy is still able to attract some of the world's biggest names. So for us, you know, if you're trying to establish a precedent, if you're trying to look at what's been available in terms of clubs for sale and the buyers that have been attracted to them, I don't think has ever been anything on the market like a Manchester United.
Rodri, any more questions, mate, before we wrap it up?
No, it just looks like, you know, by the sounds of it, they're in it for the long haul, and it just people just listening to it are hesitant. Just get involved and just to support the lads, because it looks like, you know, it's going to take a lot of time, but by the sounds of it, they've got a lot of stuff in place, and it just needs more support, more traction, and we're just. It's not a matter of time if, it's a matter of time of when these cranes are going to go now. So, yeah, just get involved.
Cheers, Rodri. Well, thanks.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Well, gents, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And I'm glad you guys are doing things peacefully, because in Cyprus, they tend to just bomb referees' cars or throw bombs outside the vice president's house. It happens. Honestly, the vice president of my club had a bomb detonated outside his house in November, and the club put out 100,000. Yeah, and we don't even know why it happened. So you guys are doing things the legal way. Let's just put it that way. But thank you again for your time. Before I let you guys go, obviously we've got the Twitter at the bottom on the ticker at the __1958. Are there any other socials you guys would like to plug? Do you have an Instagram or anything like that?
No, nothing at the moment.
Okay, fair enough.
There's one thing.
Space, yeah?
Exactly. What's his space? There's one thing I'd like to plug though. there will be a protest before the Chelsea game. And we announced that first of all, we announced that weeks ago. And then obviously, due to people asking us these questions about Norwich and sustained pressure, we went for Norwich, but we've always had our eye on the Chelsea game. We will be protesting for the Chelsea game, so we need to get the fans behind it.
And that's been brought forward, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a 28th now.
Hey, Rodri, if I was a cynical man, I would say maybe the Premier League and United have done it on purpose. It's like Thursday night. It's a bit random, but it doesn't matter. Just need the fans there. That's all that matters.
Yeah. One other thing I like to cover is kind of the timing as well.
Sure.
I think we think it's a perfect time. United are kind of pretty much season is over in a lot of ways. We've got 3 games left till the end of the season. It will carry on next season, and we'll have more time to think about plans. We fast tracked the Norwich, which was really successful. And it was a brilliant turnout, and thank you everybody who supported and came out on the Norwich game. We'll do the same for Chelsea, and we'll do the same for Brentford. There will be some protests of some description along those 2 games, and then we'll work in the close season, and then we'll start again. So don't be put off by fancy new shiny signings, fancy new shiny managers. The Glazers have a track record of this. Just stay focused on what the goal is, else nothing will change. It's just literally like Groundhog Day with them.
Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Have you got anything planned? The team are going to America, I think, in the summer. Have you got anything planned for over there?
We'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
As we said earlier on, we're in dialogue
Say
with
nada.
a number of from everywhere, so we'll see what happens.
Brilliant. Well, this has been a fantastic episode of No Choftes. So we'll be back very, very soon. Go back, like I said, like, subscribe, comment, tell your nunna. That's godmother in English. Until next time, let's go.